Hey crypto traders, checking in on the Trader Pro alert system. It's been a while since we looked at it, and we had some really nice alerts that fired off recently, and they helped give me confidence in a trade that I entered at the end of last week. So we'll go over that and a little bit of insight into how I use these alerts. Certainly not trading the crypto space very actively these days because of the fees, but certain times conditions align that do catch my interest, and this is one of those instances. A little bit of extra background noise with the waterfall going on. The dog is sunning herself in a beautiful spot right in the door, and I can't bring myself to make her leave so I can close the door. So TraderPro.com, free week trial on the premium alerts. And let's talk about what was going on recently that caught our attention. So I was looking at ETH for an entry on an oversold bounce. And here is the proof 4 days ago, scaling into some ETH or setting some ETH bids for BTC 4-hour oversold conditions. Obviously, ETH was oversold at that point in time. First things first, the background and the premise of the trade. Why am I choosing ETH instead of BTC? If you've been watching recent videos, you've heard me talk a lot about the ETH-BTC pairing. Talked about it in the talk I did with Data Dash Nicholas on Cointelegraph, and talked about it in some recent videos that I put out. And it was the equilibrium. You know I love equilibriums, and we had a beautiful one setting up on the weekly time frame. And 2 weeks ago, we were in a scenario where we were setting up for a really good bottom fishing play off of support. Very low risk trade. Why is this a low risk trade? Because if I'm looking for an entry, and I wasn't trading this actual pairing, but if I were looking for an entry based off of 0.2 support, if I enter under 2.2 or at 2.2, I'm risking 10%. And obviously at this point in time, we've seen a significant enough bounce to be looking at 15% off of that low, roughly 15%. So the risk to reward is getting there. A bit more follow through would be nice. We are looking for a weekly lower high and for this range to tighten. And at this point in time, I would be waiting. If I'm not already in a trade, there's one more trade that I would take, which would be a bearish look on this setup, looking for a bearish entry for the lower high. And then after that gets set, if we do get that lower high, at that point, the ranges are tight enough to just be waiting for the break. There's great opportunity trading the first initial pivots of an equilibrium because the volatility and the percentage moves are so significant. But once you get to a certain point and it tightens up, that profit potential shrinks and it's no longer worth trading inside the equilibrium. In my opinion, it's then best to wait for the break to take place. So a nice bottom fishing play, but that's why I chose ETH. So 4 days ago, this ETH setup was not nearly as developed. We were back at about 2.2 last Thursday, which was again 10% above our key support, but we had not changed the daily trend yet. I was looking for this bounce to see further follow through before the weekly lower high gets set. So that's the premise. I like the weekly higher low in the equilibrium for the ETH BTC pairing, and it was my belief that the ETH bulls would see a better bounce because of this longer term chart being the setup. So ETH at that point in time was dropping fast. The 4-hour RSI was getting oversold. When we were at the low in the 190s, this 4-hour RSI was in the mid to low 20s. And what also had my attention there was the hourly time frame, as its RSI was down in the low teens, almost approaching single digits. And if we look at Bitcoin at that same point in time, it was very similar. 4-hour RSI was oversold, and the hourly RSI on Bitcoin did drop all the way down to the mid-teens. So that's the premise. So that's enough for me to be scaling in because you know I like oversold bounces. So I entered one order at 195.11. I had a second order at 190.11, and I had a third order at 185.11. Unfortunately, only one of my 3 orders filled. It would have been great to have that 190 order fill. Just missed that second fill, but I was confident placing those orders not only because of the 4-hour RSI, but the 1-hour RSI. Now here's a difference where aligning time frames is important, and this is where some of our alerts, some of the super stack alerts, factor in multiple time frames because there's different scenarios. Let's say 4-hour RSI is 28 on Bitcoin, and the hourly RSI is 28. That's a very different setup than if the 4-hour RSI is 28 and the hourly RSI is 16. Very different scenario. That makes me much more confident in a short-term bounce in scenario number 2 than I would be in scenario number 1. So that's why I was confident having 3 orders and can definitely be more aggressive in that scenario than if the hourly RSI were not as beat up. 28 RSI on the 4-hour time frame is not necessarily notable, but when you're combining it with other RSI levels at significant extremes, we have a lot more confidence. So as I was setting up to place these oversold bounce entries, I got an alert that fired off, and all this did was add to my confidence. So here's the ETH chart. She left. So here's the ETH chart, and here is the alert going off. And again, I can see it on the chart right down near the bottom, or I can also go in and look at when the actual alert fired off on the log here, and I can see it was at 192.89. So at that point in time, I had one order fill, and I might start saying to myself, maybe I'm being a bit too aggressive. Maybe I want to pull one of my bids. As soon as this alert goes off, I say, nope, I'm leaving everything where it is, because again, it gives me extra confidence. Okay, I can expect that we're likely to see a bounce in the near term because of all the things that I already know from my experience trading. But again, the alert system adding extra confidence to keep me interested in further entries, ideally, which again did not fill, but would have been perfectly fine with multiple orders filling on that initial drop. So the conclusion of that trade is my target was just 4-hour exponential resistances, so I scaled out my order from 195 in the mid 203s, a nice little 4% trade. In hindsight, obviously, I could have gotten a little bit more profit out of it, and the takeaway for me is just exit half. Sell half at the exponential resistance, let half ride a little bit longer, and obviously I could have eked out a little bit more profit, but in the end, successful trade. So that's just me waiting for a trade to come to me. I know that from my experience, and you know from watching this channel, I love oversold bounces. I love them in crypto, I love them in stocks. My results tell me this is one of your edges as a trader. Keep trading oversold bounces. So I just patiently waited, and the conditions aligned that made me comfortable in the crypto space. So this is why it's one of the first trades that I've taken in the last few weeks. Again, I'm trading much less in the crypto space because fees are astounding compared to the stock world. Very big difference. But if a trade's going to come at me like that, and it's a very clear setup that I'm very confident in, I will take that trade. So let's look at Bitcoin now. Bitcoin did not fire off the initial oversold climax on the initial super stack where Ethereum did, because the conditions just barely didn't quite get enough for that bounce. And we ended up seeing a nice 5% bounce. So what other alerts can we use in conjunction with these super stacks to potentially have almost like two sets of eyes on things to tell us things when we might be missing one or the other? And just another note, people ask me, how have the super stacks alerts been going since you rolled them out? And you can just, all you have to do is look at the chart and scroll back. But so far, they have been going very, very well. And you can see the ones that have been firing off at May have been nice for tops and bottoms. So Bitcoin, we didn't get the fire off there for the super stack. We did get one just recently. We'll see how much this bounce plays out. But let's look at abnormal volume. So why does abnormal volume signal tops and bottoms? Climaxes. So when you have the bulls in a very significant bull move, you have a lot of bull volume, and right at the peak, before you top out, you have the last push of bull volume, and you have bear volume starting to pour in. So in this instance, abnormal volume would have signaled bears dumping the price, stop losses triggering, the last push for the bears, and then it's two waves hitting. The final wave of bear volume and the first wave of bull volume to buy the bounce hit at the same time, and then you get spikes in volume that mark our climaxes. So in this instance, abnormal volume on the 4-hour time frame. Here's the last two that have fired off in May for Bitcoin. We had one certainly on the most significant pump that fired a bit early, but when you're already significantly into a move, we have one that marked the top, and we have one that marked this bounce, and neither of those saw a super stack fire off. So the super stack on the 4-hour time frame did not fire on that most recent bounce, and it did not fire at this top, which was on May 7th. So there's information that we can gain from multiple alerts in conjunction with each other. And the abnormal volume for me doesn't necessarily mean bail on your whole position. For me, as someone who likes to scale in and scale out, it potentially means to me, okay, if we're overextended, if RSI levels are high, if we're getting abnormal volume signals after a significant bull move, I'm going to start scaling out of my position, or I'm going to start scaling in certain instances. So there's a member who shared that they like the super stack alerts to tell them, okay, go get your computer, but then zoom in and use other signals to exactly pinpoint your entries and exits. So everybody uses them a bit differently. One more thing I want to note is make sure you are using the Telegram alerts. It's one thing to get the alerts sent to your email. It's entirely different to have these Telegram alerts sent to your phone or whatever device you're using. You know, my girlfriend actually has more alerts set up than I do, so we'll be cuddling and watching a movie, and her phone, her Telegram signal is a different noise. So we can be not anywhere near the screen or have no idea what's going on in crypto, and when we hear that noise, we know, oh, something's going on in crypto. We're either breaking out or breaking down right now because the alerts are firing off. So make sure you set up those Telegram alerts and don't just use your email, because I know for me personally, I get emails all the time. I'm not constantly checking the email. I'm not getting noise alerts for my emails. So the Telegram alerts are much better for that. Let's now take one more look at Link. So Link USD on the 4-hour time frame, these are examples of the abnormal volume that fired off. So again, the climax is hitting the tops. And again, this is all of the last 5 weeks. Multiple signals of overextended conditions to the upside, another one here, and then one to the downside that resulted in a really nice bounce. And let's compare that to the Link abnormal volume. Nope, we just did that. Let's compare it to the Link super stack on the 4-hour time frame and just see what the differences are. So looking at it on the 4-hour time frame, we can see that Link has pretty much given off 2 signals here recently. And again, scrolling back, we can see in the last 6 weeks, the only signals that we've gotten here have been pretty on point as far as, again, not necessarily nailing exact tops, coming pretty close certain times, but other times letting us know, hey, we're getting overextended. Maybe it's time to start locking in some profit, even if it's not exiting your whole position. But here we see we haven't had any super stacks fire since May 9th. The conditions have not aligned, but the abnormal volume has been firing. So a little bit less criteria needed for the abnormal volume to fire than we need for the super stack, which again is looking at multiple time frames and a lot of different conditions lining up, a bit more simple for the abnormal volume. So those are different ways to utilize the alerts in conjunction with each other. And let's now check in on Bitcoin and where we stand in the short term. So the 4-hour oversold bounce, remember we just had another super stack fire off on the 4-hour time frame right back here, and we changed the 4-hour trend, but at this point this bounce is not significant. We're going to have to see this 4-hour uptrend continue in order for solid follow-through. We know 9,314 is our most important resistance level. If we zoom to the 12-hour time frame, I can see that anything under that is just a lower high, and we're going to have to see the bulls regain the 12-hour trend in their favor. Bigger picture, I'm looking at the 2-day time frame for clarity because we have our nice and clear high, low, lower high was hit, and now I'm looking for a higher low compared to 81. And if we change the 12-hour trend, that's going to be pretty convincing that our higher low has been set. So I'm watching for the 2-day time frame to tighten up on Bitcoin through this week. Probably going to be looking for a break first week of June. And while that's trading sideways, while that continues to happen, we can be watching for the potential of the altcoins to continue to hold strong. Remember, I've said it many times, altcoin bulls love a sideways trading Bitcoin. Because when Bitcoin's breaking out, Bitcoin dominance in the recent past has been going up. When Bitcoin is dumping, it's dragging the altcoins down with it. When it's sideways, that allows the flexibility, the freedom for these altcoins to trade in their own regard. Bot activity picks up with volatility. And if volatility shrinks, we're not going to see as much arbitrage bots. So bots that are buying and selling the altcoins based on what Bitcoin's doing. If Bitcoin is tight and there's not a lot going on, those bots have less control and we can see more freedom of movement. So we're in a clear daily downtrend on this dominance chart. Next time we bounce, we're just looking for a daily lower high. Know what I think's going to align, and this is just now popping into my head. I would not be surprised for early this week to set our higher low compared to 8,100. When that bounce takes place, Bitcoin dominance bounce takes place, and then when we look for a lower high on that bounce compared to 9,900, we will then look for that lower high being set to potentially be the Bitcoin dominance chart setting a lower high as well. So that is our check-in. Again, free week trial for the premium alerts on the traderpro.com website. I'll put a link in the comments of this video. I appreciate you watching, and we will continue to check back in throughout the week.